afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Men of Real Estate on KCAA Radio. I'm here with Steve Matley talking about land flipping. So, Steve, where we left off, we were kind of going through the basics of how to get into this. What does it look like? And you find a piece of property, you track down the owner somehow, you get the general plan from the city, and you start to go through the process of kind of filling out their wish list.
Right.
So what are the tips and tricks for that? Or what are the things that you need to know? Because it sounds like it's a recipe, but you were alluding that maybe it's not.
It is and it isn't. And here's why. It's different in every single jurisdiction. So you could be, so we're talking right now, we're in the city of San Diego, but here there is the city of San Diego, there's the city of Chula Vista, the city of La Mesa, the city of National City, you've got Poway, you've got El Cajon, there's unincorporated county areas. Every one of those, even though they're all, within rock throwing distance of each other, they all act very differently. They have a different government structure. They have different general plan, different zoning plan, different temperaments and attitudes, right? So different structure within their city governments, how fast they can work, how well they're set up and organized, right? How staffed. All those things are different. And the communities themselves have different temperaments. You may have one community that wants to see some redevelopment, other communities that are very much NIMBY-ish. They don't want, I'm leave things like they are, please. I'm happy here. And so you have to kind of decide agency by agency, community by community, where are the right places to be. That's a real trick. And we've been, pretty good at picking out the right areas. And we'll go into different major cities, but we don't usually work in the big city. We work in one or more of the smaller towns around it.
Kind of maybe at the outskirts and things like that.
Yeah, around it. And we talk to them and find out what is their temperament towards development. And you have to do some research and digging to find those things out. So that's, first of all, it is a recipe, but it's not a clear recipe. It's kind of like I have a recipe, but every chef does it differently, right? So I can make spaghetti, but how many different types of spaghetti are out there, right? And basically, okay, it's noodles and tomato sauce and meat. There you go. Well, yeah, that may be, but every restaurant you go to has got a different take on what that looks like, right?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what this is. Every city has every take. Now in California, there's something called the California Map Act, which kind of sets out the rules. But I will tell you that a lot of jurisdictions either don't know it or don't really feel like following it too much. And you're not going to argue. Yeah, you're not going to argue.
Right. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do if they want to do it a different way. They just do that.
They do. Sometimes it's for the good of their community, because a one size fits all approach doesn't work, right? Because that was written as a state law, and it was written a long time ago. And their city is unique to now with those people that live in there and their unique challenges right now and their unique benefits. On the other hand, you also have a lot of people that come out of general, courses and degree programs in urban planning and those kind of things, economic development, that go into those places.
Certainly, yeah.
And they weren't taught that. They didn't have a course on the California Map Act, probably. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. If they did, they probably passed the test and forgot everything like I did in school. So now you've got to, basically they don't always know these things. So sometimes they're just working out if they're just not aware of what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do when they're going through things.
Got it.
And again, you want to gently suggest and guide. You don't want to argue. You don't want to be condescending. You don't want to sound like you know more than them, because they're humans like everybody else. They're doing a job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And so you don't want to be annoying about the whole thing. So we have had cities where we've done things that we knew for a fact were not required. But we're not going to argue. You just do it, and then you don't worry about it. It adds a little cost, but you're not going to argue it. So again, they're employees of that agency trying to do the best they can do. So there's not really a recipe for it, but I'll tell you the basics of it, the general idea. So once you've done what I said, you find out your zoning and your general plan. You have to go get some basic reports done to support that. So that means you need a basic soils report. You need an environmental site assessment, your phase one environmental report. And you may need some special reports. For example, a noise study, a traffic study, a water quality study, an air quality study. These kind of things that affect, if you do this, your development, how will you affect the community? So those things may be required. So you need those consultants to do that. You need a land planner and or civil engineer to help lay out what you're doing to make sure that it works yield wise, functionality wise, and as far as drainage and those types of things. And so those consultants you'll have to have, they'll do their work, and then you have to then have meetings with the agency to make sure you're going the right direction, and then submit your stuff, pay the fees, and they'll be checked by every department in that agency, plus a lot of what they call sister agencies, which are other governmental agencies that work alongside the city. Say, example, flood control districts, parks and rec districts,
right.
School districts, those type of things.
And they probably don't overlap with the cities that cleanly all the time either. So you're dealing with agencies that are both in and outside of any given city. So it's different people, different everything. There's not using a similar system. Okay, wow. So this can get
utility
complicated.
Districts, utility districts.
Sure.
So, and it's not clean by boundaries. And actually some school districts cross over partially into another town, but not completely, right?
Right, just to make it easier.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're independent agencies with their own boundaries.
All right, so you've got a system, no doubt, set up to wrangle this, and you go through that process of just trying to figure it out. What happens if a city changes goals or something like that, or some outside agency acts on something as you're getting into this? I mean, it seems like you could get, you might have something in escrow, and that might not work then.
Yeah, so now we're getting into where the risk factors are. Okay. And this is where, people ask, well, what can go wrong with this? Well, the list is kind of long, but I can kind of tell you some of what goes wrong. One of those is what you just said, an unpredictable public agency, an unpredictable city or county. And so why would they be unpredictable? Well, I'll give you an example.
Right. Anytime where there's people involved, I'm sure.
Well, that's a big part, but there's other things that people can't control. So for example, we had a project in Riverside County. We filed everything, had the agreement, verbal agreement from the city and everything, exactly what we're going to do, yield, layout, everything. We submitted it, but we submitted it on March 1st of 2020. What do you suppose happened 2 weeks later?
Yeah, everything changed fast.
Everything changed. So everybody in the city went home, right? Okay. And they weren't allowed to come back to work, right? Okay, so now they're at home. Everything's kind of come to an abrupt halt, and most of the people that were in the decision-making positions of that small city took that opportunity to retire. They've been there for decades. That's why we work in that city. We knew these people, right? Well, they all retired.
Right. Okay.
I don't blame them. And so the city hires new people, and I mean new people, because if you're going to replace people, you're going to probably hire younger people that can learn and grow with the city and have a full career there, right? So you hire,
but it's going to be a whole bunch of new ideas,
which is also inexperience, right? Experience, you hang around long enough, you learn things and that kind of stuff. And again, it's not a knock on them. It's just, you can't expect somebody that's in their 20s to know what somebody in their 60s knows, right? It's not practical. So you learn things by hanging around long enough and having experiences. So they come in, and of course they don't know us. So now, and we can't approach them, because even when they went back to the city, you couldn't go in and make appointments with them. Everything was, online. So now you can't go you can't go bang on a counter and demand to talk to somebody. So that makes it too. And so it would take, months.
Well, and kills the personal relationship component too, where you might have had somebody who knew you and would trust you and can help you.
You're just some person.
Wow,
that's some tough. Person filing something.
Yeah, you're some other voice on the end of a phone, and that connection's just missing.
While they're working through a learning curve, right? So all this going on at the same time. So that dramatically affects things. So that's an unpredictable that nobody could guess. Also, let's say you're in a city and you're working down a certain path, and all of a sudden there's a recall election, and everybody gets turned over. Well, the whole attitude changed, and maybe the attitude changed over the issue of development, right? The no development versus the pro development people, right? So that happens, and so now you started down a path, and then the people that had blessed that are no longer in office, and someone else is, right? So that can happen. The state legislature can pass a law. The governor can pass a law. There can be regulations that come down from the EPA or from FEMA. You can have a court ruling, right? The Supreme Court rules on something, or a circuit court rules on something, and it changes the rules. Or the market changes. After we got everything done, we found out nobody wanted these kind of things, right? No, everybody said they wanted this kind of house, and now they don't, right? Because the interest rates went up.
Right. You can't find a builder that wants it or something like that.
Right. The interest rates went up and changed things, or the biggest employer in town went out of business, or whatever. You can't control those things either. So those are the kind of the landmines.
So if you're still under escrow, it's not yours yet. But if you've already closed on it and you're trying to sell it, then or do you keep it in escrow until you sell it to
Well,
the
so
builder?
that goes to the structure of what we're doing. So most people would probably, you know, would buy it and then do the entitlements and then sell it. We tend to do a structure where we can, when the seller's amenable to it, we will actually just put it into a very long escrow. I know this sounds crazy because even some real estate agents say you can't do that, but just because you've never done it doesn't mean you can't. And our rule is, as long as it's not illegal or immoral, we'll do it if it works, right? So we will put things in escrow for 3 years. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? But we're paying the seller to have it in escrow. And if we drop out, they get to keep the money we paid them. We've given them deposit money that's applicable to the purchase price. It counts towards the purchase, but we don't get it back if we don't perform.
If you cancel, right?
Because that's their compensation for not having it on the market to someone else, right? And that allows us to not have to come up with all the purchase money up front. We can come up with the purchase money on the back end, and that really makes it easier, a lot better, trying to fund the project. I don't need, say, $7.5 million to do a project. I can do it with, you know, $800,000-$900,000, and then I don't need the money to close on the property till at the very end when I'm going to sell it anyway. So I can do a bridge loan, or I can double in the escrow and have the seller's money, the buyer's money, pass through to the seller. So I can, as long as it's legal, as long as it works, and everybody's aware of what's going on and they agree with it, we're good to go.
Good. Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and after that, maybe we can talk a little more about structure and what comes next. Thanks for being here today, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you after these messages here on KCAA Radio.